The AI is the new employee in healthcare, the latest one. That multidisciplinary team is non-clinical people, clinical people, and now an AI agent. Technology companies are pushing heavily that AI will replace everyone.
Right.
It is the health systems that are trying to find the balance between subject matter expertise and assistance from AI. There is the patient who should also be involved in the decision making, but we can now almost at 100% actively predict something is going to happen, and we can take corrective action before it happens.
Right.
But to me, when I look at, well, what is the true output of something like that? The revolution is those parents will get to see their child live.
Welcome to the Digital Healthcare Experience, brought to you by Taylor Healthcare. Subscribe now and stay on the forefront of the digital healthcare revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Healthcare Experience podcast presented by Taylor Healthcare. I'm your host, Chris Therese, and today I'm joined by Dr. Zafar Chaudry, Senior Vice President and Chief Digital Officer at Seattle Children's. With over 3 decades of experience, his international leadership spans healthcare and corporate sectors across the US, Australia, Europe, and the UK. He has extensive experience in enterprise infrastructure, business intelligence, and the implementation of large-scale electronic medical record systems. Prior to his role at Seattle Children's, he served as CIO at Cambridge University Hospitals and Liverpool Women's and Alderhay Children's Hospitals in the UK, and also as a global research director at Gartner. Dr. Chaudry has been recognized on Becker's Hospitals to Know list 7 times since 2018 and has received numerous awards and accolades, including most recently one of Becker's 2025 Hospital Chief Digital Officers to Know, Constellation Research Artificial Intelligence AI 150 list in 2025, Chime AHA Transformational Leadership Award in 2022, and Seattle CIO of the Year Orby Award winner in 2022 as well. Dr. Chaudry, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
It's absolutely our pleasure, and I'm really excited for our conversation today. As we dive in, I'm hoping that you can share a little bit about your role at Seattle Children's and how it positions you at the intersection of technology and patient care.
Thank you for the question. I'm the Chief Digital AI and Information Officer here at Seattle Children's. This is my 8th year, and the role is really about bringing the clinical and the non-clinical worlds together. I would say, I started my career as a physician, and I sort of classify myself as still a recovering physician. So I'm definitely a physician first, but I'm also deeply involved in the digital side of our healthcare system. So the position is sort of designed to give me a unique vantage point to see where technology and patient care can truly intersect to improve patient outcomes. The job, I try to ensure that digital solutions that we're developing and implementing don't just add new layers of technology, but genuinely support our clinicians, nurses, allied health professionals, and enhance the care we provide, because our mission here is hope, care, and cure for kids to live their most fulfilling lives.
Absolutely. And what better mission is there in the world to serve than that? And certainly we're in the middle, of course, of an AI revolution in healthcare and everywhere else. So I'm curious, an AI revolution in healthcare, what does that mean from your perspective, and why is this so important now?
So I think the AI revolution isn't so much a sudden event as it is a natural progression of where we've been heading for years. We've been digitizing medical records, imaging, other data for decades. Now we've finally reached a critical mass where we have high quality structured data that allows machine learning algorithms to become truly powerful and useful. The why now is a combination of that data availability and a significant leap forward in computational power and AI algorithms, which allows us to analyze this data in ways that were previously impossible. I think the real revolution is in how we can use these tools to bring new insights to that vast amount of information we have. And technology is now allowing us to make that leap.
Yeah, absolutely. So what it sounds like you're describing is more maybe of an evolution than a revolution. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an evolution.
Mhm.
Of course, from a sales and marketing point of view, everything needs to be a revolution just so
Right.
that you get a huge uptake. But
If we're not revolutionizing or democratizing something, then really what are we doing with our lives,
exactly.
right?
And over the years, hospital systems have been using and improving. And it's not that the field of data science is new or today is the only day we've had data scientists. People have been writing algorithms for a really long time, but haven't really been able to apply those algorithms to masses of data, which now we
Right.
can do, and we have the computational power to support that. And that's where the revolutionary piece is coming.
That's fantastic. And I know you've described AI as a clinical co-pilot of sorts, and sort of diving into, as you say, I'll call it practical aspects of where AI can help support clinicians in their day-to-day and their decision making and so on. How do you see that taking shape?
Yeah, I think the analogy co-pilot makes sense. AI isn't meant to fly the plane on its own, right? It's there to
Right.
support the pilot. In a clinical setting, this means AI can help with everything from sifting through a patient's entire medical history to flagging potential risks to providing real-time data insights during, let's say, a surgery. Imagine an AI that can analyze a patient's vital signs, lab results, cross-reference them with thousands of similar cases, and highlight a trend that might indicate a developing complication. That's the power that we see in these assistants. That's a powerful tool. It frees up clinicians to focus on what they do best, applying their expertise, connecting with the patient, and making the final human-centric decision better, right? So I emphasize it's still the human at the center, surrounded by these new tools that will make people more productive, take pressure off individuals because we are short-staffed clinically. And that's where I see the value of these things.
It's very interesting, the notion of a co-pilot, because if you step on a plane, you have to have that co-pilot sitting next to the pilot. They won't let you take off without it, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder, do you see the same thing kind of emerging in healthcare, where, as you described, the amount of data that we've collected and all of these sources of information that can come together to make informed decisions about a care path for a patient, like, it doesn't even sound possible almost to do that without an AI assistant co-pilot kind of sitting next to that human physician, because there's just too much information. Is that a fair
Yeah,
way to think about things?
I think it's how do you help the subject matter expert
Right.
process the information as fast as possible,
Mm.
provide insights, but still allow that subject matter expert to make the final decision. And
Right.
also, it allows you to scale at a pace we've never been able to scale before, because truth be told, the population globally is increasing. The demands on healthcare around the world are increasing. The number of trained individuals is decreasing. So if you're going to truly scale that capacity and bandwidth, you're going to need these type of tools to help you amalgamate a multitude of information to make decisions as fast as you can. And fast decision making also prevents progression of disease in some cases.
Right.
When we look at certain types of cancer, you really don't want to catch a cancer in stage 4. You want to catch it in stage 1 so you can improve the prognosis of that patient and hopefully extend their lives.
So as you think about, and cancer care might be one of them, I'm curious about what specialties or clinical areas, where are we seeing the most immediate benefits from AI assistance from your perspective?
I think we're seeing immediate benefits in areas that are very data intensive. For
Mhm.
example, radiology, pathology are leading the charge because AI can analyze CT scans, MRIs, slide biopsies with incredible speed and efficiency, look for patterns, helping to detect subtle anomalies that a human eye might miss. Another area is genomics, where AI can quickly sift through vast amounts of genetic data to identify specific mutations related to a disease. We're also seeing great promise in the area of critical care, where AI can continuously monitor a patient's data to predict a potential decline in health hours before it happens. An example I can give you here at Children's is kids that have had brain surgery, they go to the intensive care unit, and we are now able to take all the data from the bedside because in an ICU, a child is plugged into many devices, and we can use that data to predict whether or not the child will have a stroke. There is a high risk of having a stroke post brain surgery in a child. And if you have a stroke, it's hard to recover from that. But we
Right.
can now almost at 100% actively predict something is
Mm.
going to happen, and we can take corrective action before it happens. And that means better patient outcomes, longer life.
That's incredible. I mean, to think about being able to, with close to 100% accuracy, predict a complication like a stroke. I mean, that sounds really quite revolutionary. And I mean, really, those potential personalized treatment plans that might result from this data I mean, that could certainly be a revolution. It seems in healthcare.
Yeah, it is. And at the end of the day, we're doing all these things to make sure that our patients have the best outcomes.
Right.
But to me, when I look at, well, what is the true output of something like that? The revolution is those parents will get to see their child live. To me, that is a revolution for the person who's being impacted in that particular condition.
Absolutely. I think anybody who's had, a child go through something in their lives or watched, people go through that, again, there's, no better or worthy pursuit, I think, that you can find. And I'm curious, I mean, are there unique challenges, I'll say that, as it relates to looking at this through the lens of Seattle Children's or another children's hospital or what have you? And I guess I'll ask that question in terms of unique challenges that you might face in this space centered around care of children, either through the lens of the actual data, the complexity of it, the availability of it. I'm curious about the interaction with parents and their, a belief in the reliance on the tools. Do you see anything unique at all through your lens of applying these methodologies and technologies to Seattle Children's or other peers in your group?
No, so I think that all the innovations that every children's hospital is coming up with in terms of using their data for patient care is transportable and portable.
Right.
It's not, so a child having a stroke in Seattle is no different than a child having a stroke in London.
Right.
Same data, but the problem is we don't have a singular method of doing it. Everybody seems to build their own tools. I would like to see a world where we take the data of all the brain surgery children globally and put them into the larger language model, because
Right.
that would then give you massive insight. I think cooperation, even across the nation, whether it's pediatrics or adult care, is variable. It's patchy. There's not a singular standard because we are still a competitive healthcare system
Right.
compared to the other parts of the world, right? In socialized medicine, because it's a single payer, it's a lot easier to collaborate. Here we're finding that there are pockets of collaboration, but not a standard for the greater good. I would love to see an environment where every health IT team in every health system runs to the same standard. I mean, think about this. There's 5,000 plus hospitals in the United States. Every single hospital has its own data centers. Does
Right.
that make any sense whatsoever? They all use the same systems, similar ERP systems, similar EMR systems. Why not have 4 or 5 regional data centers running the exact same medical record system? Why not? Why won't all of us be on the same instance of the same EMR or ERP? Because then the data is aggregated across millions of patients. Instead, we have our own silos. Then we spend time arguing about interoperability and whether we can share data. And that's been the running argument for years on end. And yet that data isn't freely available. I mean, you or me as a patient, I'm in Seattle. If I land in Los Angeles, my data isn't always immediately available.
Right. We can go anywhere in the world, put in our ATM card, and
Yes,
they know exactly who we are. But
exactly.
healthcare, obviously,
Yeah.
we've struggled with that forever.
Yeah. I mean, you can pay for anything as long as it has the Visa or MasterCard sign. It
That's
doesn't
right.
really matter what currency, what country, what language. And we can't seem to do that with healthcare data.
For lack of a better term, portability of data.
Yeah.
The barrier there, is that a policy barrier? Is that an industry barrier, a technology barrier? What walls need to come down?
It's a combination, right? National values and targets are not really set, right? There has to be national standards. And then there has to be the freedom to be able to share the data without being bogged down by legal jargon. I mean, we live in a country where everything is a legal contract. So to negotiate a business or data sharing agreement is eye-watering. And you have to do it multiple times. And if you have to do that with 700 different organizations, that will take a lifetime to negotiate. Whereas it could be set as a national standard and a national agreed contract, and then you wouldn't have to constantly renegotiate these things. But then in that scenario, then the legal profession wouldn't generate revenue. So I think everything has its pros and cons depending on who you are and what profession you're in.
It's really fascinating. I want to pivot back to something that you said earlier in terms of the notion of a symbiotic relationship between human providers and the AI. I'm curious because the temptation, obviously, because of all the challenges that you outlined in terms of the number of professionals qualified to administer care, to the aging population here and across the world, to the growing population sort of in general, it seems as though there is this, or potentially this temptation for the AI to replace rather than augment. So how do you keep and how do you ensure that AI is augmenting rather than replacing and keeping that human element central to care?
So I think it is, the confusion here is the rhetoric created by technology companies. Because technology companies are pushing heavily the AI will replace everyone.
Right.
Because for them, it's selling more licensing, selling more technology. It is the health systems that are trying to find the balance between subject matter expertise and assistance from AI and still having the ability to make a decision that is right for the patient. Remember, in patient care, there's more than just the physician, nurse, allied health professional. There is the patient who should also be involved in the decision making.
Right.
And then you have the AI. And I like to say that the AI is the new employee in healthcare, the latest one. So when you are trying to get care in a health system, it has to be done by a multidisciplinary team. And in my world, that multidisciplinary team is non-clinical people, clinical people, nurses, doctors, allied health professionals, and now an AI agent. And all of these together with the patient and the parent make the right decision for that patient. That's how I see the world.
It's really so that the notion of AI is just as another member of the care team to provide that insight. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Because if you do that, then you're drawing on the best aspects of the care team. Right? It's like parenting, Chris. If you're a two-parent household, the hope is that both parents will input into the child's upbringing, but you also hope that in progressive households, the child will also have a say in their upbringing. And then when you bring all those three facets together, then you get good parenting. And if it's a single parent household, then it's the single parent and the child together, sometimes grandparents as well, that help raise the child. I view AI to be the same thing, just another team member who may be faceless. And now some organizations give their AIs names internally. And that is now the additional staff member that you can't physically touch, but you can physically interact with. And so, how is that any different than what we've done in the past?
I think that's fascinating on a couple of levels. First, as a father to a rambunctious 5-year-old, some days I wish that we had the AI assistant kind of running in the background to help with some of that. Not quite there yet, but maybe one day. But the other thing that's really interesting to me there is, and I think you said this earlier in terms of the trust factor, things like that. I'm thinking about it through the lens as a parent myself. If a health system positioned an AI as exactly that, here's, Alexa or whatever, another member of your child's care team, another resource for your child's care team, it seems like that positioning, if you will, may also help bring down some barriers in terms of the public skepticism that might still exist with some of this stuff. Is that a possibility here as well?
Yeah, I think in my opinion, the gap here isn't we just have more technology, because we always will innovate in technology. The gap is the communication model, right? Because even fear in doctors and nurses exists because they think AI will take their jobs.
Sure.
And it is our responsibility to communicate to the customers of this technology that this is just an assistant, an aid, one of the trusted individuals on your care team, and they, or however the AI wants to refer itself to, he, she, they, will be helping you make the best possible decision you can with the data that is available to you at the time. And better informed decision making, in my opinion, should lead to better outcomes. That's ultimately the goal for us, is always make the person, the patient, better, safer than they were when they came into our health system. And if AI is the other component that helps us to do that, then we should be all in. I think it hasn't necessarily been managed or messaged that way, because there's different messages coming from different groups. And there is a huge push to say AI can eliminate FTE. And it's not that it can't do basic tasks better than humans, but you have to think of it from a perspective of, if I can take the human, take away their basic, boring tasks, give it to an AI, and then give the same human more exciting, developing tasks, then you'll end up having a better human, right?
Absolutely.
And so we've really got to fine tune what is the messaging around AI for the future. Now, maybe 25, 30 years from now, the AI will be so smart that it has its own entity. Right. But at this point in time, it is moving in that direction, but the pace isn't, it's not something that's going to happen in the next 12 or 18 months per se.
Right.
And of course, when dealing with this additional staff member in your team, that staff member suffers, the AI staff member suffers from the same problems humans do: biases, hallucinations, disbelief. We're seeing that, right? I mean, it makes stuff up. It has opinions which might not be politically correct or kosher. So
Right.
you do treat it like just another employee, right? I mean, we don't always in the care team go with one particular opinion. We take the opinions of all and then we amalgamate that into a care plan. And we hope that the care plan is the right one for the patient. This is how we have to start looking at this. I don't think it is completely solved that way on a day-to-day basis.
With those ethical considerations in mind, as you mentioned, bias, transparency, accountability, so on and so forth, is it as simple as ensuring that it's integrated into that kind of existing, process or ecosystem of developing that care plan? Or is there more to that? Is there more to thinking about those ethical considerations and deploying strategies to ensure that things like bias, transparency, so on and so forth are minimized as this technology continues to proliferate?
So unfortunately, it's not easy because it's not easy with humans, right?
Right.
We all really
There.
difficult. We ourselves are having difficulty managing ourselves, right, across the
Right.
nation. So it's not going to be easy to police an AI, but following the same methodology that we do with humans is constantly checking, rechecking, asking the question, validating, revalidating. That would be applied to AI too. So never just be complacent. Ask the
Right.
question, test the data, test the assumptions, double check the algorithms. Constantly asking those questions is how we should move forwards. And hopefully we do the same thing with humans, right? This is
Right.
how we live in in our great country where we have opinions of different people and choices and the ability to vote, make decisions. So that's the advantage we have. We should be applying the same set of parameters to an AI and hope that the end result is the best we can do in terms of asking those questions.
Absolutely. And we've talked a little bit about trust in the AI as it continues to be adopted. I'm curious about trust from the perspective of clinicians, physicians, allied health providers, so on and so forth. How do you achieve that trust in terms of your clinical team and others like yours? And how do you see that evolving in the coming years?
So I think trust is earned. Just as with humans, you can't walk into a room and say, you should just trust me, right? The same
Right.
thing you're going to see with this technology. I don't think we should just automatically trust it, although we do live in a world now where people, live by the browser. I saw it because I, Googled it, whatever I did with it, and therefore it must be true. I
Right.
think even with AI, you should validate. I don't think you have time to validate every single thing, but you should validate periodically the assumptions that you are getting from whatever agent or assistant you have built for your organization. I think just accepting that what it says must be right because it's an AI is a very risky strategy. So I
Right.
always say to my clinicians that if you're using AI to write things, text, emails, progress notes, you are still responsible for reading that and validating that before you press sign. Because if it's wrong, the license that is at risk is yours, not the AI.
Right.
And I think that's also an educational gap. So when people use general productivity tools on a day-to-day basis, like writing an email or responding to an email using these tools, unfortunately, I can see that people don't read the response and they hit send. I know because I received these responses. When you read them, you're like, well, that can't have been an email that was supposed to be sent to me, right?
Right.
So you've got to. It's like doing a PowerPoint deck, right? At least change the logo of the PowerPoint deck, right? And people don't do that.
That's right.
So I think the guidance to provide, even to children, because the new generation, the Gen Zs moving into the Zillennials, they believe this stuff every day they wake up. They're
Right.
using AI in their schoolwork, in their day-to-day, in guidance to form their own opinions. And it's up to us as parents to teach the children that they must question what they are doing periodically, just to make sure that they're validated, the accountability, the transparency, the accuracy of what is actually being said.
Right.
Otherwise, it's all going to become, the pun word, fake news. So
Right.
you've got to be extremely careful. And I worry about the next generation because they immediately just think it's correct
Right.
without asking, well, where did it get the information from? Because one thing you'll find in AI is once it actually says something, it does try to cite its reference source,
That's right.
especially if it's using the data you fed it with. So checking those reference sources would be useful. I'm not saying you have to do that all the time, but periodically, right? Because typographically, there may have been an error in the data source, right?
That's a
You don't
great
know
point.
that. So you have to find checks and balances, right? So if you use the human analogy and apply it to AI in our lives, however we choose to live our life on a day-to-day basis, my hope is that every person in our country applies checks and balances to their own life. Some do, some don't, some are in one extreme or another. I get that. But I'm
True.
saying that you and I, on a day-to-day basis, periodically do ask ourselves, hey, what am I doing? Why am I doing that?
Absolutely.
You say you have a young child, you want to raise your child the best you can, and you are probably putting in checks and balances for your child, right? What is the
Absolutely.
right thing to do? What should I teach my child? What shouldn't I teach my child? And if you don't do that, then whatever comes out in terms of how your child grows up will be truly and squarely because you didn't do those things.
That's right.
So AI is no different, right? If you tell an AI and feed it with data that says everything in the world is horrible, evil, blah, 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 then guess what it's going to believe?
That's right.
It's going to believe that, right? And then when you ask it to give you an opinion, it has to base its opinion on that large language model. And that large language model will say it's all negative. And
That's
one
right.
thing we seem to have serious issues with today is that concept of hope, because humans need hope. That's how we've survived through the ages. So we have to build those checks and balances into the tools we use on a daily basis, or we will spiral into an undescribable future.
So fascinating. And I mean, you sometimes forget that the AI, at least at this point in its evolution, is a reflection of us as humans, because
Yeah.
all of the data and the input and so on and so forth, it's largely created by us over, years and decades and millennia in terms of where the AI is drawing from. So I think that is just such a powerful observation and a powerful statement in terms of the parallels between the way that we treat and train and create expectations for humans and the way that we do that for their digital counterparts. Very fascinating. And I know that we're almost here at the end of time, Dr. Chaudry. I'd love just to open the floor and ask one more question. Is there anything else that you're working on or excited about, or anything at all that you'd like to share with the community as we close?
Yeah, so I think we are excited about the possibility of where these tools will take us. Obviously, finding hope and cure for kids for the future using these technologies, amalgamating masses of information at speed, at pace, since we are generating an immense amount of clinical data, we can use that data and build the natural language processing tools that can read and understand all of that data, pulling out key information, and then using that information in things like clinical trials and coming up with unlocking what that real data value looks like, and then developing the biggest breakthroughs so that certain diseases and conditions that children face into adulthood are absolutely stamped out. So it's an exciting time to be at this intersection of medicine and technology.
This was such a wonderful conversation. Dr. Chaudry, thank you so much for joining us. And more importantly, thank you for the just amazing work that you and your team and so many others like you across the country are doing at Seattle Children's. Thank you for everything. And it was a real pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for the conversation.
And thank you also to our listeners. If you enjoyed the conversation, please like, share, and subscribe to help us keep growing the show. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Taylor Healthcare and the digital healthcare experience, you can go to taylor.com/digital-healthcare. That's our show for today. And until next time, this is Chris Civit-Therese wishing you health and good cheer. Take care.
To learn more about Taylor Healthcare, please visit taylor.com/digital-healthcare. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice or services. The Digital Healthcare Experience is produced by Naomi Schwimmer. Podcast music by Nicholas Bach.
Health literacy benefits patient and provider alike, but how can patients take control of their own care? Introducing iMed Health from Taylor Healthcare, digital tools that support patient education and health literacy. Go to imedhealth.com to learn more. Find the link in the show notes.